The music had just started. The bride stood at the altar, all eyes on her, but then everything stopped. The groom dropped the ring. Guests whispered. The mother of the bride pointed across the room, demanding obedience. One woman stood still, refusing to kneel. In that moment, centuries of silence cracked wide open. This wasn't just defiance, it was a reckoning. Before the vows could be spoken, the entire ceremony unraveled in front of hundreds. This is the story of the maid who stood tall and changed everything. Comment your city, we're watching with you. Leela had worked in the Whitmore estate for nearly 5 years. Quiet mornings, polished silver, and floral arrangements, this was her rhythm. She kept to herself, rarely speaking unless spoken to. To the outside world, the mansion sparkled with wealth and grace, but Lila knew the truth layered behind polite smiles and rigid rules. She was the only black employee in a house full of porcelain traditions and unspoken boundaries. The Whitmores were preparing for their daughter's extravagant wedding, a grand affair meant to display power, not love. Lila was tasked with managing the chaos, ensuring every napkin, candle, and cushion was flawless. But beneath the surface of the celebration, something darker stirred. Whispers in the hallway, eyes that lingered too long, commands that felt more like commands than requests. Lila sensed it. A storm was coming. She just didn't know it would arrive on the wedding day in front of everyone. The morning of the wedding arrived. But something felt off. Lila moved through the grand hall, adjusting centerpieces and checking place cards, but the air was thick with unspoken tension. Whispers floated behind her backwards like uppity and out of place. Still, she kept her head high. She had done everything perfectly. Hours before the ceremony, Mrs. Whitmore summoned her. The bride's mother, wrapped in emerald silk and entitlement, pointed to a silk handkerchief on the ground. "Pick it up," she said, like it was an order. Lila hesitated. It wasn't about the cloth, it was the tone, the eyes watching, the subtle test of obedience. "I'm not here to kneel," Lila said softly. The room went silent. A few guests turned. One of the bridesmaids let out a gasp. Mrs. Whitmore's face flushed. "Excuse me," she snapped. "You will kneel and beg forgiveness." Lila stood firm, trembling inside but steady on the outside. She turned and walked away, each step heavy with generations of silence breaking beneath her heels. The bride's brother, who had always looked at Lila like she was invisible, now stared at her with open disgust. Staff whispered that she was about to be fired. Guests arrived, catching pieces of the story as it spread like wildfire. By the time the bride entered the room in her white gown, the house wasn't filled with joy, it was boiling with tension. And just minutes before the vows, everything shattered. The bride stood at the altar, the room filled with soft music and stifled tension. Then Mrs. Whitmore stepped forward, interrupting the ceremony. With a cold, commanding voice, she pointed to Lila, standing quietly at the edge of the room. She disrespected this family. Either she kneels and apologizes, or this wedding ends. Now gasps rippled through the crowd. All eyes turned to Lila. The groom looked stunned. The bride looked torn. Lila didn't flinch. Her silence was louder than any protest. Then, the impossible happened. The groom dropped the ring. He looked at his mother, then at Lila, and walked away from the altar. The wedding was off. Murmurs turned to outrage. Guests stood frozen. And Lila, she didn't shed a tear. If this moment shook you, hit the like button. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The wedding guests filed out in stunned silence. The lavish decorations, the music, the carefully planned undone by a single act of dignity. Lila didn't lose her job. She left it on her own terms. In the weeks that followed, her quiet defiance became a local story, then a national conversation. Some called her a troublemaker, others, a hero. But for Lila, it wasn't about fame. It was about finally refusing to shrink herself for someone else's comfort. Because sometimes, the most radical act is standing when the world expects you to kneel. This wasn't just about a wedding. It was about power, pride, and a line drawn in silence. What would you have done in Lila's place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that reveal the hidden truths.